I don't play with lions. I don't play with those. I don't even do roller coasters. Wow.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Sharon Reed with you guys. Sharon's on Rebel HQ, of course. All right, guys, amazing show ahead for you guys. So the explosions from the Epstein file controversy continue. Donald Trump with a remarkable, as in remarkably bad idea, post on Truth Social trying to defend himself. That made it much worse. Now they're doubling down on it, and his lawyer is saying, no, it's okay, I was Epstein's lawyer, and trust me, they're both innocent. Sure, we'll get to that a little bit later. Now the word MOSSAD is being mentioned by many people, and of course people are flipping out over that. The fact that they're flipping out more about that, I think, is interesting and telling. We'll get to that in a little bit. And people we normally disagree with, but these days we have found some anti-war, anti-Israeli war crimes agreement with. Well, good news, the things we agree on is very popular in the country, right? We're all on the winning side of that in terms of the American population, right? Definitely not the American politicians. We're on the losing end of that, both sides, right? But on the things we disagree on, also good news. Because on the things we disagree on, the American people agree with us and not them, and very clearly so. So I'll give you those results a little bit later in the show too. So in the midst of dark times, there's a lot of really solid news about where the American people stand, and that seems to be squarely where we are. So that's great news. So Sharon, let's get to it.
That was like the greatest halftime speech ever. You really got me all. It was so great. I have hope. I see rainbows and unicorns. Okay, we'll begin with this one, Cenk. Tucker's speech.
And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? It's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty.
Okay, Cenk's right, it's not going away. Tucker Carlson there. Strong words for anyone trying to shame Americans who are curious about potential ties between Jeffrey Epstein and intelligence agencies like the CIA or Mossad. At this weekend's Turning Point USA Summit, Tucker implored the audience to not buy into the argument that acknowledging suspicious links between Epstein and Israel is anti-Semitic. It's not that way, he says. It's not conspiratorial either. Listen to this.
There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying, there's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. Criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater, it makes you a free person. You have a right to demand that foreign governments not be allowed to act against your interest. That's not creepy, it shouldn't be forbidden. And yet all of us have trained ourselves to believe that you can't say that somehow. That that's like too naughty and forbidden. And the effect of making that off limits has been to create a lot of resentment, and I'll say it, hate online. Where people feel like they can't just say, like, what the hell is this? You have the former Israeli prime minister living in your house. You have had all this contact with the foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad? Were you running a blackmail operation on behalf of foreign government? By the way, every single person in Washington, D.C. thinks that. I've never met anyone who doesn't think that. I don't know any of them that hate Israel, but no one feels they can say that. Why?
Yeah, Tucker's not going to be able to say that without reaction. We'll get to that in a little bit. The former prime minister of Israel Naftali Bennett responded to Tucker and Tucker's questions. But before we get to that, Cenk, what do you make of Tucker Carlson's no holds barred Turning Point USA speech? He really just decided to lay it all out there.
Yeah, so that portion of the speech, I totally agree with. And so if people are discomforted by that, that's kind of their problem, not my problem. So the great majority of American people agree. So let's break it down, but I want to be clear about it. So there's a couple parts that are totally indisputable. You can dispute them if you like, but it just shows you're detached from reality. So can we criticize the American government without being anti-American? Well, of course we can. We could love America. I love America. I think Tucker Carlson in his own way loves America. And we both criticize the government all the time, the American government. And the Iraq war was a disaster. I mean, almost everyone on the Democratic side and the Republican side has criticized the American government at some point, and pretty harshly, right? And no one's ever been called, I mean, sometimes the right wing used to call the left un-American for that stuff, but that garbage has ended, right? Like, so now even the right wing hates the Iraqi war and et cetera, right? So now, and what about an ethnic government? Well, I mean, of course, everybody would say you can't criticize the Saudi government because it's a Muslim state. That argument would be the most ridiculous argument anybody's ever heard, or you'd get laughed out of the room, right? If you said, you can't criticize the Turkish government because that would be an racist, anti-Turkish position, you get laughed out of the room, and you should, right? But when they say, you can't criticize the Israeli government or wonder if they are doing this kind of operation, then you hate Jews. No. That doesn't make any sense at all. And by the way, you're implicating all Jews in Mossad's actions. That's ludicrous. So Mossad is not calling random Jewish Americans or Jewish Norwegians or Jewish Israelis and goes, by the way, here's our secret agent plot. No, does the CIA call random Americans and be like, hey Bob, here's what we're gonna do next, right? No, they're responsible for their own actions, and not all Jews are. And if you say that all Jews are responsible for what Mossad might have done, you're a weirdo anti-Semite. Not us, you are. And the Israeli supporters are so weirdly defensive about this. They're like, I know Mossad didn't do it. How do you know Mossad didn't do it? If you ask me, hey, did the Turkish version of the CIA do something or not? I'd say, how the hell would I know? Like, they didn't call me, they didn't call my uncle, how would I know? But they're like, no, Israel would never do that. No, you're a lunatic. The intelligence agencies of all of our governments do terrible things. And to say that you know that Israel is the one moral intelligence agency that would never do it, come on, it's absurd. In fact, you're almost telling on yourself if you say, I know definitively it's not Mossad. Why, are you an Israeli agent? I don't know how else you would know that, right? So, no, it's illegitimate to ask the question. So it's legitimate to ask if he was connected to Norway, Bolivia, Kazakhstan, like any other country. But if you ask it of Israel, somehow that magically becomes illegitimate. And even when there's massive ties, and we'll talk about the ties in a minute to Israel, Epstein did not have a lot of ties to the Norwegian government or the Peruvian government. He had a lot of ties to Israel, and so did Ghislaine Maxwell, massive ties. But even though those ties are clear, and we could talk about them, and we're not saying Mossad definitely did it. We're wondering, hey, well, that's a lot of ties to Mossad and Israel. They say, you're not allowed to ask. But why am I not allowed to ask? That's ludicrous. Okay, so now I have more questions because I'm starting to wonder, Sharon, wait a minute. They seem, and when I say they, I mean the people that are in power in Washington, like Democratic politicians, Republican politicians, mainstream media, they all seem way more bothered by this theory than the theory that American presidents like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump were involved. They're like, yeah, that's bad, but that's okay. We can live with that one though. It might have been CIA or Mossad. How dare you, you anti-Semite? Okay, and you wanna know why they're more touchy? Because it's one thing if the US government or any government covers up the crime of child rape and hundreds of cases of it. It's another if they were part of it. If they set up young underage American girls to get raped by the rich and powerful so they could have blackmail or whatever other thing that they need for their intelligence agency, if it's CIA, Mossad, MI6, whoever it might be, any intelligence agency that is connected to that, did not mind raping hundreds of underage American girls for their purposes. That is why it's thermonuclear. That is why, even though the whole country realizes that there were hundreds of Epstein clients, none of them have been prosecuted, and the government and yes, be honest, under both a Democratic president and a Republican president, in fact, multiple Democratic and multiple Republican presidents, the US government is like, we are never going to tell you that. We're not going to prosecute a single person ever, 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 because this is thermonuclear. Okay, you're confessing. So a lot more where that came from. Back to you, Sharon.
Yeah, you mentioned somebody who would be in the know, would perhaps be the only one who could tell us, and maybe this is that person. In response to questions about whether Epstein colluded with Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad, Naftali Bennett wrote this on X. We'll show it to you. As a former Israeli prime minister, with the Mossad having reported directly to me, I say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false. Epstein's conduct, both the criminal, you okay, Cenk, and the merely despicable, had nothing whatsoever to do with the Mossad or the state of Israel. Epstein never worked for the Mossad. This accusation is a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending they know things they don't. They just make things up, say it with confidence, and these lies stick because it's Israel. There's a vicious wave of slander and lies against my country and my people. We just won't take it anymore. Well, Tucker clapped back when that went up. He's still going full steam ahead. You just won't take it anymore? Instead of issuing threats on social media, why don't you sit down for a rational interview on Jeffrey Epstein's ties to the Israeli government? Well, reach out to your office this morning. No word yet on whether Bennett has taken Tucker up on that offer. Meanwhile, some of the biggest defenders of Israel in Congress are upset that the Epstein story just will not go away. Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, annoyed that CNN's John Berman even asked him about the country's biggest news story. Let's take a look at that.
Frankly, this seems like a colossal waste of time and effort, and frankly, a lot of nonsense. There are a lot of issues facing this country right now. A dead pedophile ain't one of them.
Explain to me what you think the nonsense is here.
Well, frankly, the fact that you're even covering this. I mean, I don't even understand, frankly, why we're spending a lot of time on Jeffrey Epstein. The fact is, he was a pedophile who was arrested. He committed suicide.
Just so you know, it's being covered because the deputy director of the FBI is said to have taken off work on Friday to protest the Justice Department's own handling of this.
Oh yeah, there's that. How about a Democrat for you, Richie Torres, arguing that this whole thing is just one big distraction?
Can we be clear that the Epstein controversy is a distraction of Donald Trump's own making, that he was fanning the flames of the Epstein conspiracy theory during the campaign, and so now he's essentially an arsonist pretending to be a firefighter, and there was no need for an investigation. The medical examiner had investigated the matter and found that Epstein died by suicide. The same conclusions were drawn by the Bureau of Federal Prisons. There was no need for a new investigation unless the purpose was to legitimize a conspiracy theory.
Or, Cenk, to find out more about Epstein's crimes, ties, and potential blackmail. I mean, it's not just about whether he committed suicide or somebody offed him, perhaps in that 1 minute disappearance of the prison tapes that have been released. What say you about both? I mean, you got both sides of the aisle, others, and Tucker Carlson beating them all back, saying, no, something stinks here.
Yeah, okay, so I'm now amused by these reactions. So, what connects Republican Representative Lawler with Democratic Representative Richie Torres? Oh, right, they're both enormous supporters of Israel. In fact, two of the biggest supporters of Israel in Congress. And look at that, it's bipartisan. And I was amused by how many times Lawler said, frankly, I mean, this is ridiculous. Please get it out of the news. Please get it out of the news, frankly. There's nothing to see here. The girls raped themselves, obviously. It was on tape, but it was just child porn of them getting raped by no one. Of course. Like you could almost sense the panic in his voice, right? And Torres says, this is a distraction. Brother, you're in the Democratic Party. MAGA is talking about how Trump himself might be on the Epstein list. And you think that is not something the Democrats should talk about. You think the Democrats should let Trump off the hook on that because, come on guys, come on. I mean, it's a fairy tale in Washington. Look, my whole life I grew up on mainstream media and believing that these politicians were real and that they were having debates. And I was such a naive little kid. I used to watch McLaughlin Report and Meet the Press and all those things, starting at like the age of, I don't forget if it was 10 or 12. Like I was really young. I'd watch Super Friends Wrestling and This Week with David Brinkley. Okay, and I thought it was real. I'm sure a lot of you today still think it's real, right? No, it's all theater. Look at the Democrats and the Republicans. The minute that topic is touched, you gotta move off of it. You gotta move off of it. And look, I'll give Ari Berman credit. Nice job bringing that up and asking legitimate questions on CNN. I'm gonna get to Megyn Kelly in a second. I'm gonna get to the evidence on connections to Israel in a second. But look, guys, they keep using anti-Semitism, of course, as always, like one trick pony, right? Anything about Israel, you're like, Israel, anti-Semite. You're like, wait, I didn't even finish the sentence, right? But in this case, when they use it as a weapon, you're not allowed to ask questions about only one government and only one intelligence agency. You can ask all the questions you want about America and the CIA and every other country, but you're not allowed to ask about Israel ever, about anything. You're not allowed to criticize them, you're not allowed to ask, you're not allowed to say it. Okay, because why? Anti-Semitism. All right, well guys, now you're using it as a weapon to protect your country. And you're driving up anti-Semitism. That's another part of the speech that Tucker was right about. Look, for a while in my lifetime, this was so effectively buried that the government was right. Oh, I think we can trick Democrats or Republicans. We just have mainstream media. We just got to get those buffoons to play along, and then and nobody will be the wiser, right? And that worked for decades. But now mainstream media is falling apart. There's all sorts of other media. We're all talking about it. So now when they try to bury it, and they're like, you better not say anything. Bigot, racist, anti-Semite, etc. It's getting 1,000 times worse because it's building and building and building online. And the more the government says you're not allowed to criticize Israel, the more the American people start to get enraged. And the more you connect the nefarious actions of any government with a religion, you're gonna drive up hatred towards that religion. It's a profoundly bad idea done enormously selfishly by the current government of Israel. So guys, give you an example. I use my own ethnic background all the time just to give you a sense of what someone who's unbiased looks like. So I remember when the Turkish government was accused of a false flag operation in Syria. Right? And this is a bunch of years ago, we covered on the Young Turks. And the Turkish government said, how dare you, this is outrageous conspiracy theories about false flags. And then the foreign minister was caught on tape, and we played the tape, it was hilarious. He's like, we should attack our own place so that we have a reason to go into northern Syria with the Turkish army. Okay, now if you yelled anti-Turkish when that was revealed, laughed out of the building, right? As you should be. But when Israel gets caught doing anything, they're like, we represent all Jews. And all Jews did this. And if you criticize Israel at all, you're criticizing all Jews. Don't do that. Don't do that. I didn't do a false flag operation in Syria. My poor uncle who still lives in Turkey didn't do a false flag operation in Syria. Turkish intelligence did that. They're a government, they're an intelligence agency. They don't represent us all. And when you put that on Jews across the world, you're driving up anti-Semitism. There's no random Jewish person got a call from Mossad. It's both wrong, counterproductive, and most importantly, inaccurate. Inaccurate, don't smear all Jews. They got nothing to do with Mossad. They're not in Mossad, we're not in the CIA. So It's a disgusting use of anti-Semitism and bigotry as a shield and a weapon by the unsurprisingly disgusting current Israeli government. I mean, the guys who committed a genocide, they're burning up credibility for the very legitimate charge of anti-Semitism in other cases for their own political purposes. Wow, color me shocked by the angels who run the current Israeli government. So let's go to the evidence. I've got more, but I'm going to just give you one tweet from Glenn Greenwald. Actually, before we go there, in case you're wondering, so remember Alex Acosta? He was the guy who let Epstein go with a slap on the wrist, the prison sentence where he didn't have to stay in prison. He just treated it like a hotel. He could go out at night, during the day, the entire day. That's not a prison, okay? And they said that it was solicitation of prostitution. No, it was rape of underage girls. Anyway, Acosta told others, and back in 2007, quote, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." Okay, now Acosta never said it on the record, so people say, oh, it's hearsay. No, people heard him say it and they reported, and we're not in a court of law. We're in a court of public opinion. So he apparently said that to multiple people. So several people, right or wrong, are saying, yeah, Acosta told me that Epstein was an intelligence agent and that's why he couldn't prosecute him. So whatever happened to Acosta anyway? Many years later, he became the labor secretary for Donald Trump in his first term. He has nothing to do with labor, no expertise in labor at all. He was a prosecutor. I'm sure it was a wild coincidence. Okay, so and once, and this is Times of Israel reporting this, Epstein himself told someone else that he was CIA. By the way, that you could say, hey, maybe not Mossad, maybe just CIA. That's what Epstein said. Perfectly legitimate, super legitimate. It might be just CIA. We don't know. Glenn writes, one of Epstein's closest friends was former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak visited Epstein only 30 times. Okay, number two, a key source of Epstein's vast wealth, though mysterious, excuse me guys, was from Les Wexner, whose primary life cause is Israel. I looked into it, that is also absolutely true. An enormous donor to AIPAC, absolutely obsessed with Israel. And one day he says, oh, that fired math teacher with no college degree, you could handle all of my wealth, hundreds of millions of dollars. And you could take almost as much as you like. Huh, that probably happens all the time. It's not like Les Wexner was a businessman who's sophisticated and knows what he's doing. Oh no, he was enormously good businessman, made a lot of money. But you're a math teacher with no college degree who was fired. Sure, take all my money. Yeah, that's probably happens. All right, number three, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, the billionaire Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad agent who mysteriously died after that was reported. Though Maxwell was British, Israel gave him a state funeral when he died. By the way, Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister at the time, attended. One of the most legendary Mossad agents of all time. He stole information that allowed them to win some of the wars that they won in the early years. And so if you're an Israeli, you can say, hey, listen, man, Robert Maxwell, he stole from the Americans, the British, etc. But God bless him. We won those wars because of Robert Maxwell. But you can't say he wasn't a Mossad agent. They give him a state funeral saying, what a great Mossad agent. That's interesting. Epstein's dead, but Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of the legendary Mossad agent, not dead. Okay, number four. Oh, by the way, here's another side note. No, before I go to that. Hundreds, maybe thousands of men raped underage girls. The only person currently in prison for it is a woman. Okay, because the rich and powerful men, we can't touch. Okay, number four, Epstein got the red carpet treatment when visiting Israel. Number five, Epstein bankrolled major investments in Israeli tech. Look, guys, all of this means it's definitely Mossad and we know and we cracked the case and this is definitive proof and it would stand up in court. No. The real proof is in the tapes, whether they still exist or not, or they were all destroyed by elves in the American government. Gnomes just popped up out of nowhere, but not CIA or Mossad. Just random gnomes and just grabbed all the tapes and grabbed all the clients and grabbed all the evidence and made it disappear. But probably not connected to our government or our allies' governments. They're trying to treat you like you're stupid. They are insulting our intelligence in every way imaginable. Today somebody, I mean, this happens all the time. It's no big deal. It's a minor thing. Some random guy say, "Oh, I can't believe you're working with Tucker Carlson on this." Okay, and now Megyn Kelly has joined in, and Megyn Kelly's like, "Yeah, of course it's legitimate to ask if it's a Mossad. We don't know that it's Mossad. We're asking. It's one of the most plausible theories." And people are like, "Oh, now you're working with Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson." I'm not working with anyone, man. We happen to be asking the same logical question. Can we all ask, hey, is it raining outside? Or is that, oh, now you guys are working together. And we're working together to what? Expose Donald Trump and his administration for covering this up? How is that a bad thing? Okay, look, don't believe your lying politicians. They're the ones who are constantly telling you this is no big deal, except as always, the two exceptions, Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna. No, in this case, a bunch of folks on the progressive left, AOC as well, questioning this, etc. Ro Khanna saying, let's have a vote right now on releasing the Epstein files. Let's go, let's put everybody on the record. Weird. Almost no other Republican or Democrat in the House is joining Ro Khanna and saying, let's expose the Epstein files. You know, Congress can do it. And he's saying, let's go, let's put it to a vote. And all the politicians are like, no way. Why? If you're a Democrat, why? Trump might be on the list. Now MAGA's saying Trump might be on the list. No. My handler, my babysitter, my friend who just randomly happens to follow me everywhere from AIPAC, who also randomly gave me $1 million, says no, but it can't be Mossad. That is the one thing you're not allowed to say. Okay, if you don't think this is weird, you think this is normal, that both parties, me and Tucker and Megyn aren't colluding, the Republican and Democratic politicians are colluding. We're just sitting on the outside going, what the hell is going on? Okay, but no, we're not allowed to ask that question. No, we are allowed, we just asked it, we all asked it forcefully, and if you try to cover it up by weaponizing bigotry to use for your own political purposes, you're a terrible person. And if you're covering up child rape, you're a terrible person. And that applies to almost all of Washington. All right, Sharon, any last thoughts?
I know we got to move out of here, but I do have just one last one. You know, you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell. Why do you think we don't hear more from her? She's got to know more, leveraging. Why isn't she being talked about more?
Because no one in power will ever talk about any of this. Because like folks are talking about Ghislaine Maxwell now online very regularly, right? I mean, Tucker brought her up, I'm bringing her up. I mean, the fact that her dad was a legendary Mossad agent and happened to just get $1 billion is kind of relevant. And then Epstein turns up with hundreds of millions of dollars when he doesn't even have a college degree, right? And oh, look, the guy who gave him those hundreds of millions of dollars is an enormous supporter of his. We're not supposed to ask these questions. But the reason why it's not coming up in official circles is almost every politician in DC and almost every reporter in Washington, DC is deathly afraid of Israel. I mean, the one last thing, Sharon, to that point. When Tucker said everybody he knows in DC thinks it was Mossad, I don't have the same experience. Only some of the people I know in Washington think it was Mossad. But do any of those people say it publicly? No. Because they know that if you say something like that publicly, you'll be smeared for the rest of your life. And in official circles, they'll call you an anti-Semite and try to ruin your life for asking a perfectly legitimate question. So don't tell me they don't do it. When they do it, everyone knows they do it. That's why everyone is deathly afraid of criticizing Israel inside of Washington. So those are stone cold facts. They're doing a genocide now. We gave them another free $30 billion, both Trump and Biden. And then every time people criticize, oh, you're not allowed to, come on. They're insulting our intelligence. No, this is a very legitimate question. And of course, the government in its infinite corruption will never tell us the truth until you get one in our lifetime. We could just get one honest person into the White House. And look, if the CIA did it, why don't you just say it? Like, okay, oh yeah, that implicates the CIA. You're goddamn right, it implicates the CIA. It implicates America. No, it means America is cleaning up its own house. It implicates past governments. It doesn't implicate us today. It makes us look better today because we're willing to be honest, We're willing to call out our own government, our own intelligence agencies, and we're willing to, going forward, protect all American citizens. But the people in power in DC absolutely, positively refuse to do that. That is why everyone across the board has lost trust in government. And then they wonder, oh, why don't they like government? Why do they believe conspiracy theories? Because you're a bunch of liars. And we're all sick of everyone in government and almost everyone in mainstream media lying to us our whole lives. That's why you lost credibility. Okay. That was an excited answer to your calm question, but it's a good
No, I mean, I get it. I just, the news cycles, even when it's the worst, most horrific story, even when it's about war, whatever, you name it, it's only gonna last for so long. This one though feels different, because people like you, perhaps a Tucker, not gonna let it go, and there is that whole faction of MAGA who's saying deep state, and we want the answers now. We want to know what happened, so we'll see.
Yep,
we'll see. Take a quick break, and we'll get right back with you.
I mean, come on, guys, come on, please.
All right, back on TYT. So let's start with Super Chat. Mocha Funk says, I had an epiphany. Maybe Corn Pop was not that bad a dude. Now that we know all the politicians are liars. Maybe Corn Pop was a good guy. Brian Schwartz writes in, do you guys think that Trump deflecting the public mess over the Epstein files by recently sending more missiles to Ukraine? No, Brian, I think those two things are separate. We got both of those things in the rundown, by the way. We're gonna do the Ukraine story soon, and we got 2 more on Epstein. But look, he could try to distract in any way he likes. Ain't nobody gonna get distracted. But I do legitimately think that the Ukraine thing is different for reasons we'll explain a little bit. But nothing wrong with asking the question, all right? So on the YouTube member section, Anthony McClendon writes in, hi guys, Cenk, your drop on the first hour of Friday's episode was perfect. Drop it like it's the Epstein file. Oh well. Okay, that was what I did, and yeah, thank you, I appreciate it, Tony. Janet, AKA Gemstar Dragon says, today's my birthday, can I get a shout out? Why not, Janet? Happy birthday, okay. Yeshua E says, gotta admit, I'm actually surprised that of all things, this Epstein thing is sticking to Trump. I genuinely believed it would go away after a week like everything else. Yeah, no, well, a lot of my friends thought that nothing would stick to Trump and that his followers would never question him. No, they picked guys, this is super important. I mean, I keep talking about it in the stories that we're covering, but they picked him not because they were like, oh, Donald Trump's the greatest person ever. A lot of them think that, I know that, right? But they mainly picked him because he was anti-establishment and they loathed the establishment. So when he joins, and for them, protecting Jeffrey Epstein's clients is the single most establishment thing you can do. So when he betrays that core MAGA idea, then he goes outside of MAGA. You see what I'm saying? And so I know people thought it was a cult of personality, and for some it is. And in fact, that's why MAGA's having this huge civil war. And now a lot of MAGA guys are calling the Trump supporters cult. It's so interesting, right? So we'll give you more of that as we go along. All right, let's go to our member section on TYT.com. Jumbo Gino says, moving forward, I'm gonna assume that anyone who doesn't want the Epstein files to be released is on the list. So A, that's a fair assumption. I would just add to it, or knows that one of the governments is implicated and doesn't want you to know, is part of the cover-up, right? Jay McNulty says Madison Cawthorn may have been onto something about the orgies and stuff, and then they smeared him and got rid of him. I mean, like what they did to Cawthorn, again, a guy I disagree with ideologically, was, I mean, nothing but a hatchet job. I mean, like they just smeared him, character assassination 101, right? Oh, don't you dare question the people in power. Embedded Dude said there must be a crap ton of powerful people who are pedophiles. How else could Epstein's murder be covered up and denied by so many? Well, look, that's the question we're all asking now. Irish Fiddle Dragon says Mike Lawler is a purchased piece of crap. He's my representative. He doesn't listen to any of us. Well, to be honest, almost none of them do. We'll be back.
He killed himself.
I mean, come on, guys. Come on, please.
All right, back on TYT, Cengiz sharing with you guys. Also, WAMOP33, thank you for hitting that beautiful join button below the video on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. CD Norse Dog Dad, thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube. G Daddy, Puff Dragon, and Patrick Royster, thank you for gifting 5 apiece. You guys are amazing, beautiful people. I'm just gonna read you 2 quick comments here from members on TYT.com because this is an interesting thing that's happening here. Newfie Dragon wrote in, these are tough times, but Cenk is right. There's tremendous change happening right now. This is the beginning of the impending progressive tsunami. Look, guys, the one thing the country hasn't tried is populist left. And so I feel this enormous buzz in the air of like, right, Bernie and Roe and those guys, they've been saying all the right things from day one. So like, this is exactly what I was hoping would happen. It is beginning to happen. So we should all be ready to engage there and bring back voters who agreed with us on core issues. So I love that you're getting it and feel the same hope that I do. And last one, Art Guy says, gotta say Weekends with Cenk is my new favorite news and opinion action dramedy show. It's got everything. I'm doing these live videos on the weekends on our YouTube channel, so make sure you're checking it out. Ring the bell if you can on YouTube because that lets you know when I'm going live. People are having fun with it because I do. I get way more goofy on the weekends. So check those out if you can and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to be a member that gets all of our content, again, hit the join button or tyt.com/join. All right, Sharon, what's next?
Trump crash out, Cenk. Donald Trump on Saturday chided his own supporters for asking questions about the Epstein files in a massive statement on Truth Social. This is one of the longer ones. The post is too long to show you in its entirety. In fact, that's how long it was. So we'll just give you some excerpts momentarily. But Cenk, you've already read that statement, digested it fully, we'll say. What was your initial reaction?
So the initial reaction is he's telling on himself. This is almost a confession. So we're gonna break it down for you guys so you see what happened. Then I'm greatly amused by Donald Trump's lawyer, who was also Epstein's lawyer. Yet another coincidence, coming in to say, no, trust me, my clients didn't do it. Oh, well, that's super compelling. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But one of the things I didn't notice the first time I broke it down, Sharon, was something that some right-wingers pointed out, where I now think, oh, no, is it possible? Well, I'll tell you what that is as we go through.
All right, can't wait to hear about that. But first, let's give you some of those snippets of what Trump wrote. Here's the first. We have a perfect administration. The talk of the world and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay.
Why are we giving?
Sorry, before I even go further. Apparently it was right in the beginning. Okay, so that was the one. I don't want to overly tease you. I just want to tell you what we promised you. So that was the one where right-wingers were like, what do you mean Epstein never dies? And I was like, guys, come on, let's not get into Tupac's alive and so is Elvis and all this stuff, right? But then I was like, wait, Trump has verbal diarrhea. Like he always says what's on his mind accidentally, right? The guy who never dies. It is a curious thing that he said. So is that enough to think that Jeffrey Epstein's actually alive? No. Is it even likely that he's still alive? I'm gonna guess no, not likely, okay? That's one of the wilder conspiracy theories. But the guy who never dies, when Trump says something, it was usually top of mind. Okay, just makes you go, no big deal, let's keep going.
All right, number 2, why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax. 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more. They created the Epstein files, just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier.
Sharon, I'm gonna jump in again.
Yeah, you have to.
Right.
This is,
Wait, so the Department of Justice released a memo last week saying there are no Epstein files. Now Trump is revising that to say there are the Epstein files, they're just fake. And Obama and Biden created them. But wait, if Obama and Biden created them, why did you run on them? Why did you tell everyone they were real and that you were outraged and you were gonna get to the bottom of it? And are they fake or do they not exist? Because if they're fake, well, all right, that's all right, show it. And show us how they were fake and how they were doctored. That's super interesting. Release the fake files. This guy's an idiot. So he's digging and digging, and throughout this, he was insulting his own voters. This went over like a lead balloon. MAGA hated this statement. He got ratioed on True Social about this. Wow, so more.
Wow, Kash Patel and the FBI must be focused on investigating voter fraud, political corruption. It's blue. The rigged and stolen election of 2020 and arresting thugs and criminals. Instead of spending month after month looking at nothing but the same old radical left inspired documents on Jeffrey Epstein, let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great.
Okay, so the radical left came up with the Epstein files?
Apparently.
So he's saying that MAGA, all of MAGA, was hoodwinked by the radical left. There are no Epstein files, or they're fake, or both. And MAGA was just not bright enough to realize it was a radical left plot, as Donald Trump, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, JD Vance, and almost everyone in the right wing talked about how important the Epstein files were throughout. Were they also hoodwinked? Was Trump hoodwinked when he was talking about the Epstein files? Okay, I guess he's calling MAGA stupid. And that all of this is fake. Don't worry about it. But then I have one quick question, Sharon. Who raped all those girls?
Yeah.
Because if it's fake and it never existed, do the girls not exist? Do the nearly $500 million in payouts for lawsuits regarding those rapes, they just paid them for no reason? Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison even though there's no evidence against her? Epstein killed himself right before he was about to be released because there's no evidence, or the evidence was fake. Donald Trump's in a lot of trouble here because this is bona fide horse crap. And now not just the left and independents, but MAGA can see the horse crap. All right, keep going.
Well, here's more, the horse is still going. 1 year ago, our country was dead, and now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about.
Oops.
A lot of people care. A lot of people care.
No. Sharon, when he says nobody cares about it, that might enrage people more than any of the other horse crap we just went over. Because they're like, are you kidding me right now? You're telling me that the thing we were all most animated by for the last 10 years, nobody cares about it? You're now pretending that we don't care about it? No, I care about it, brother. I care about it. So when he insults their intelligence and tells them, now your job is to not care about it anymore, they're like, nah, wrong, brother, not my job. And that's why MAGA is fighting within itself now, because some of the Trump guys are just going, no, Trump. And a lot of the other MAGA guys are going, no, not Trump. Like, this is BS no matter where it comes from. And now some of within the MAGA split, the MAGA guys that believe in the idea of anti-establishment are starting to attack the pro-Trump guys as a cult that just backs the guy instead of the ideas that they believed in. So, I mean, within 6 months of Trump taking office. So if you were hoping for a MAGA split, or you were, I mean, you couldn't have asked for better than this. I mean, what I would greatly prefer is to find out who actually did the goddamn crimes, right? I would love to know who did the crimes. But the fact that a huge percentage of MAGA is waking up here is a silver lining. All right, more.
Let's talk about the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Of course, she's taking the brunt of MAGA's criticism over the Epstein files. Bait and switch is the accusation mostly. But judging from that post, Donald Trump seems to be staying with Bondi for now at least. Last week that we covered a series of reports that allege FBI Director Kash Patel and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino were on the verge of resigning from the Trump administration if Bondi got to keep her job. Bongino hasn't commented on that speculation, but Patel has denied the reporting. Let's see what he wrote on X here. The conspiracy theories just aren't true. Never have been. It's an honor to serve the president of the United States at real Donald Trump, and I'll continue to do so for as long as he calls on me. Kash Patel.
Okay, wait. Is he saying that this was a conspiracy theory all along? Because he's on tape talking about it dozens of times. Like, this is breaking every record on gaslighting. Now Kash Patel is saying, oh, you guys are all crazy. No, there was no Jeffrey Epstein issue at all. You guys are all conspiracy theorists, and so am I. What is this? This is beyond ludicrous. Okay, keep going.
Well, maybe somebody who's an insider will help you understand this thing, Cenk. Trump's former lawyer, David Schoen, denying that the president is in the Epstein files. Here's what he wrote on X. I was hired to lead Jeffrey Epstein's defense as his criminal lawyer 9 days before he died. He sought my advice for months before that. I can say authoritatively, unequivocally, definitively, he had no information to hurt President Donald Trump. I specifically asked him. Now there's a lawyer, an insider, a Cenk, who's probably one of the last people who had substantial conversations with Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay,
do you believe him?
So let me get this right. He was Epstein's lawyer and he was Trump's lawyer. And he says, don't worry about it. They're both innocent. Oh, wow. What an authoritative source. Oh, wait. Trump and Epstein had the same lawyer. Things that make you go, Okay, so it was a brief time for both of them, but Alan Dershowitz represented both of them as well. But don't worry, Alan Dershowitz says that apparently, according to Benny Johnson, that he took Epstein to Israel all the time and met with members of parliament. And we saw last week, Dershowitz on tape telling Sean Spicer, oh no, I know that there's a list and I know who's involved, but I'm not gonna tell you because of confidentiality reasons. So we all know there's a list. We all know there's people on it, but no, Trump and Epstein's lawyer says, you can look away now. Okay, very convincing. Yeah, and people actually cited that. Like, that's what cracked me up. Like, who cares? I mean, of course his lawyer's gonna say he's innocent, right? But like people in like establishment media, they're like, oh no, Trump's lawyer says that he's not involved with Epstein. Also Epstein's lawyer, so that settles it. Does it?
Officer of the court, Cenk. These are officers of the court.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, despite the best efforts of Trump, his administration, his allies, the MAGA base is still very unhappy about this. And that's because their messaging has been all over the place. Journalist Prem Thacker did a good job of summarizing how Trump and his administration have talked about the Epstein files. So they actually have been talking about it. They talked about it before, and then once in office, here's what they're saying. We're releasing the Epstein files day one. There are no Epstein files. Here's video proof nothing happened. Okay, we had to edit it. There are no Epstein files. There are Epstein files, but the Democrats made them. Why do you care so much about this Epstein guy? What are files? Look, I don't know what kind of a job they could have done better here trying to make this thing go away, but this ain't it. Again, it's like that news cycle question for you. Who's gonna win this one?
So no one's going to win this one because the people who want the Epstein files released and the guys who did it prosecuted, it looks like we have no prayer at all. I mean, the only prayer is like someone populist left, like Bernie Sanders, who they can't call anti-Semitic and who would just go, oh, so the CIA did it, so you're telling me, or MOSSAD did it, so that's why I can't release the files. Yes, I can. Look, I never liked those agencies anyway, right? So that's your only prayer. Other than that, right, you're not gonna get what you want. So every corporate Democrat and every corporate Republican will bend a knee. They will never, ever, ever release these files. And by the way, most importantly, never prosecute any of the rapists, right? So how are we supposed to not get frustrated? When the entire government and both parties say to our face, hundreds, maybe even thousands of American underage girls were raped, and we're not gonna prosecute a single person who did it. No, that's untenable. But they're not going to. They're never, ever, ever going to do it, okay? So we're not gonna win. But if Trump thinks he's gonna win with, the Obama files, Biden created the Epstein files. Like the reason why I say he's telling on himself is, you're acting so nervous and defensive. Like he's, almost everything in that Truth Social post was engineered so that if you find out Trump is on the list, he'll get to say, no, it was Obama and Biden that created a fake file, that's what it was, right? And down the list, right, of everything he wrote on there. You should stop asking about it. Pam Bondi's doing a great job. Who cares who's on the list? No one cares who's on the list. Brother, like, why don't you just wear a chain that says, I'm on the list? So look, again, we don't know if it's because Trump and Clinton were on the list and they're protecting the powerful, etc., or it's the intelligence agencies. But either way, they're not gonna release it. Trump's currently getting slaughtered by his own base over this. And if he keeps insisting on this for 3.5 years, I'm not even sure he's gonna make it. People are so freaking angry over this. But overall, Sharon, last thing that's really important, they're now eroding the trust in all of government and all institutions to a dangerous point. Like, people are starting to give up on democracy.
Yeah.
And so the alternative is much, much, much worse. So we desperately, urgently need a government that's going to listen to the American people just a little bit. Like, they forgot to do the release valve in this one. And so without the release valve, this thing's gonna blow. And I hope it doesn't happen, and I'm worried to death about it. But now the anger on all sides is growing to dangerous levels because the US government is definitely lying to us. Okay.
But isn't that, when I say winning, and I know we gotta run, couldn't, instead of giving up on democracy, that carries this anger, this energy through the midterms to start to, change the tide here?
Yes, absolutely. Look, there's, I know one organization that's honest is Rebellion PAC because I run it. So when Cara Eastman, etc. And so look, those are all people who don't take corporate PAC money, who've made a pledge to deliver on these things when they get into office. So check out rebellionpac.com. I know other guys who are honest. Wolfpack, fightcorruption.us. They want to get the money out of politics, so all of our politicians aren't crooks. But if you're hoping that, hey, if the Democrats win the midterms, but it's not populist left, it's not rebellion, it's just like, oh, the Adam Schiff wing added a couple of votes. They're not gonna do anything. Yeah. If they have subpoena power, do you think they're gonna subpoena the Epstein list? Of course not. They had 4 years to do it under Biden. They didn't do it because they don't want to. The Democrats here, I don't know if you can say equally corrupt. I don't really care if it's 55-45 one way or another. All I know is both parties, 100% are covering up this horrific crime. So the way that they could prove to us that they're not is the minute one of the parties is in charge, like the Republicans are now, either in Congress or the White House, they both have the power to do it, they could just release the list. If they don't do it, then they're obviously part of the cover up and part of those rapes. Yeah, I said it. So if you're a Democratic politician and you're not voting with Ro Khanna to make sure that these crimes are exposed, you're guilty. That's it, period. Also, obviously, of Republicans and obviously of Donald Trump. All right, we got to take a break. More MAGA rebellion, massive rebellion against Trump when we return. All right. Eclectic Miscellanea says, please don't take a drink every time Cenk interrupts Sharon. We don't want to see anyone end up in the emergency room. Okay, that is definitely true and a fair criticism.
I love that.
Okay, but
I love it. It's great. You can't help it. These things have to get out.
Yeah, I was trying, because I'm gonna forget each and every single comment for each and every single absurd thing that Trump said. But you're not wrong to point it out. Pseudo Dragon says, so Obama wrote the files, but I guess he did such a good job of smearing Trump in them that they decided it would be too unfair to release them. Yeah, that's another great point. And one I made in the live video over the weekend. So they concocted this perfect thing to use against Donald Trump and decided not to use it before the election. Seems less likely. Okay, K Flux writes in, I used to listen to TYT every day until I lost my WFH job in February 2024. I took over a year, but I start a new WFH job again tomorrow, finally. Not sure how listener friendly it'll be, but definitely hoping to add TYT back into my routine when possible. Well, we're looking forward to that too. Great to have you back. And they say, what a surreal episode to come back to. My ex-husband, who went 4chan cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, accused me of being a Mossad agent a couple of years ago. This must have been brewing for years in the conspiracy theory dark web. So I guess it must have. I hadn't heard of it until recently. But whenever anybody accuses a normal random person who's not in the government, that is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. How would you know what Mossad's up to? Like that to me, I'm so tripped out by that. Like that Mossad's gonna bother calling millions and millions of Jews to tell them something super top secret. What if they tell the wrong Jewish person? And then what if they tell Bernie Sanders and then he tells the world? It's just so absurd. Yeah. What was that, Sharon?
I think he would tell. I do think he would tell.
Oh, I think Bernie would tell.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Bernie's the most likely to tell. Yeah, and I can't believe you interrupted me. All right, I
want that sound effect again. I like that. Thank you.
Helen 007 writes in, anyone that's against releasing the files is saying they're fine with the rape of young girls. How about those victims getting some justice? Why is that too much to ask? Totally agree, Helen, 1,000,000% agree. Theater Goddess says, people don't believe Carlson's theory just because it's Israel. We believe it because the former and current actions of the intelligence agencies and big governments make it completely plausible. I agree that it is plausible. Wang John says, most of Congress is bought and paid for by Israel through AIPAC to allow them to commit a genocide without consequences. The idea that Epstein may have had ties to Israel is literally less absurd than that. And we already know that fact, good point. Madam Michelle says the denial makes the whole thing way more plausible than the original allegation by some former Fox News host ever did. You're right, it makes it way worse. Jack Callahan points out it's actually up to 1,000 girls now who have been victimized. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Sharon, and Corey F. Corey, thanks for signing up through that join button below. All right, Sharon, what's next?
MAGA melee, Cenk, watch.
Okay. So President Trump, has acknowledged that the Epstein files exist here. President Trump has acknowledged that the files were written and that there is something there. He says that they were written, however, by his enemies and therefore will not be released. Whoa, what? By admitting that the Epstein files are real and have been written and that you've read them and you don't like their contents and they were written by your enemies, doesn't make the most compelling case as far as I'm concerned. Holy moly.
Oops.
Sunday, President Donald Trump told his supporters to stop caring about the Epstein files. As you can tell, that strategy, not too successful, not yet. A lot more MAGA fury where that came from. As we mentioned, there are many more conservatives who were very unhappy with President Trump's response. Watch this clip.
We go to Travis in South Dakota. Hello, Travis.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, Jason. I tell you what, guys, I feel really betrayed and I feel really, really angry. We have a president who tells us to move on from Epstein because it doesn't matter. Are you guys still talking about this seriously? And yet he still talks about the 2020 election fraud.
I'm a free American. I supported Donald Trump in this last election. Yes, he did just actively cover up a giant child rapist ring, and I'm gonna criticize him for that, okay? And I'm sorry, after all these years of us right-wingers saying, protect the children, come on, that's bad for your soul if you don't. You speak up about that. It's horrible what he's doing.
We went from, I've got thousands of hours of footage, to there ain't no files, we ain't seen nothing. There's no list, I don't know.
I'm getting sick and tired of being lied to. I'm being sick and tired of all the lies. And by the way, I don't care if those lies are coming from someone with a D next to their name or someone with an R next to their name. I'm sick of the lies and I'm calling you all out.
All right, so a lot of passionate voices there. At least Fox News, that's gotta be a safe spot for the president, right? No, Fox News hosts also chimed in criticizing Donald Trump. Watch.
If there's anybody who could walk in and say, okay, we've resolved all of the questions and there is nothing here, it would be President Trump and his crew. The problem is you can't really do it without giving some explanation, and there has to be some explanation, and I think that's why you have a lot of people still pretty, with a lot of very valid questions about it.
You absolutely nailed it. You can defuse this ticking time bomb if you simply get out there. You can't tell me that 1,000 people were hurt and that there are no people out there that we can arrest. You can't tell me that, oh, sorry, we don't have a list. Fine, don't have a list. Tell me who the perpetrators were.
It's obvious that this is a huge PR disaster for the Trump administration. There's no way for them to spin their way out of this. I think the Epstein issue had, for a lot of MAGA types, became a proxy for whether this DOJ was going to live up to their very high expectations. And obviously, Bongino, Patel, everyone involved in this sort of failed on that.
Whether or not this was a cover-up, now there's almost like a cover-up of a cover-up going on, and Pam Bondi and others are insulting the intelligence of their base.
More outrage on X. Megyn Kelly weighing in. There are really only two options. There's no huge undisclosed there on Epstein. Bondi misled on it until she didn't. And Trump is quick to forgive a loyal soldier for being desperate to get on TV. Or, number two, there is a scandal that's being covered up and it's at his direction. Patrick Bet-David stated this in regards to Epstein. Either stop bringing up why many are annoyed with the Epstein cover-up and take the L, or tell your base the truth. Whatever you do though, stop blaming the voters. This isn't the voters' fault. Over-explaining is often the loudest whisper of doubt. Gunther Eagleman, I was told no one is above the law. But there are still loyalists, still some that are sticking with Donald Trump. Here's Alex Jones blaming the whole mess on the Democrats.
As you know, I just call balls and strikes. And after years of saying they will release the Epstein file or list, suddenly they're not going to, and we're told it doesn't exist. But then Trump comes out last night and says, well, it does exist, but the Democrats had control of it, manipulated it, which it's actually true. They've had control, but they would destroy anything they didn't want in there and leave what they wanted in there. And then Trump wants it closed. He wants it shut down, which looks extremely incriminating. But from all of my deep research, never saw Trump involved in any illegal activity with Jeffrey Epstein. So we are simply here tracking this case, not choosing a side, not wanting to make things be what we want them to be, but simply looking at the facts. But I dropped the ball. I didn't even think about the fact. I'm like, oh yeah, if they've had the list and they've had the files for years, the Democrats would take stuff out and destroy it. Well, that's obvious. They would leave in and twist and put in what they wanted.
So Alex Jones has done deep research. Charlie Kirk, meantime, is completely over it, announcing that he will no longer be discussing the Epstein files.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hand. I would love to see the DOJ move to unseal the grand jury testimony. I think that would be a big win. I would love to see that. And I'm going to trust my friends, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, my friend Pam Bondi, all these guys. I'm going to, Todd Blanche, I'm going to trust them to solve it.
And we don't need to know all the details here. Leave it to the people that are duly elected and they'll handle it, the administration. The timing of that statement by Kirk is very interesting. Look at what CNN reported just over the weekend. President called some of the Attorney General's most vocal critics in an effort to stem the bleeding over the Epstein files. 3 sources familiar with the matter told CNN. Trump's calls included one with conservative activist Charlie Kirk on Saturday to express his support for Bondi. And yesterday, Alex Jones stated that Trump world surrogates are threatening to punish influencers for speaking out. Take a look at this.
The attempts by some of Trump world surrogates to reach out to talk show hosts and journalists and influencers and say, hey, your access will be cut off. You'll never be invited to a Trump event again. You'll never be invited to the White House. You'll never be any of this stuff. You're not going to get any conservative sponsorship, no campaign contribution, ads running next cycle if you do this. That's been going on.
So Jen, can Trump and his loyalists get control of this thing through threats, access, pleas, to kind of beat it back and bury it for once and for all?
Yeah, no, I don't think they can. So this is putting 2 different things at play here. So there's so much to talk about. Also, want to comment on a bunch of things Alex Jones just said and Charlie Kirk said. First, though, I'm very curious about this poll. So the show's live 6 to 8 p.m. every day, right? Monday through Friday. And so we're asking, like, if we asked you, will some of MAGA break on this story and oppose Trump? Well, that jury already came in. I mean, if you say, no, nobody in MAGA broke, you're on a different planet. Hope God you have oxygen on that planet. No, MAGA's in full revolt. That's not an open question anymore, right? So that wouldn't be interesting. Now, some on the left have moved the goalposts. No, they have to break away from Trump and then say that they will vote for Kamala Harris next time. Nobody's gonna say that. No, and they have to say that Joe Biden was young and dynamic. No, they're not. Nobody's gonna say that, okay? So like your absurd thing of like, oh, no, I need Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson and all of the MAGA and Trump voters in order for it to count, they have to say, that's it, I will never, ever, ever support Trump again. I will only support Democrats and I'm ready to vote for AOC. No, that's not, I'm not asking that question, that's ludicrous, right? But we are asking this, will MAGA influencers forgive Trump over the Epstein fiasco? And I think that is a good question. Like right now they're super mad, but the influencers, or by the way, I don't even believe the influencers are super mad. The influencers are caught in a way that I'm gonna explain in a second. The base is mad, right? So will the influencers, quote unquote, forgive Trump over Epstein fiasco? And yes is, interesting, yes is not winning. No is winning. Wow, 45-35, and not sure is at 20. I'm kind of in the not sure camp, but all right. So let's talk about it real quick. So just on Alex Jones, I mean, that was hilarious when he's like, "I just call balls and strikes." Yeah, that's what you're known for. I've done deep research on this. Really? Did you go to the CIA? Did you go to Mossad's office? How did you do deep research? What does that mean? I Googled myself online, and and I found my older conspiracy theories, and I did research on that. So I did deep research. Alex, come on, let it go. All right. I mean, I know your fans believe it, but no one else does. But the only thing funnier was when Charlie Kirk was like, "I trust my friends in the government." Oh, you do? Okay, that's our standard now. Because I remember when Democrats said, "No, just trust Biden." And MAGA and Charlie Kirk were like, that makes sense. You just trust the people in the government. I remember them saying that over and over again. Look, here on the Young Turks, we're principled and we hated the trust Biden strategy, and that literally was a strategy that the Democrats insisted on during the votes on the bills, right? It was literally called trust Biden. And here at the Young Turks, we were like, no, we don't trust Biden. And guess what? We were right, okay? And so now Charlie Kirk's saying, don't worry, just trust Trump and government officials. So that's, Sharon, where we get to that conundrum. Because now the right-wing influencers are caught between all of the people like the Trump guys going, you're gonna lose access, you better be a team player. And if you notice, the one thing Alex Jones said that was relevant and sounded true was saying, you're gonna lose the money. You're gonna lose ads on your show, you're gonna lose sponsors. As I was seeing Charlie's panic, meanwhile, he's like ripping into all Muslims, etc. on the other side, and Mamdani, terror, parasite. I'm like, this brother's got some serious, let's put it this way, supporters who lean towards Israel, okay? For whatever reason, he's like, no, trust the government, okay, don't question anything, and remember the real problem, Muslims. Okay, now Alex Jones tells me that they're threatening the sponsors of the shows. You put 2 and 2 together, you're gonna come up with 4, okay? But on the other hand, they're also audience captured, and their own right-wing audience is in a fiery rebellion. And any host that goes on there and goes, no, there is nothing to look at here, everything is just fine, like Ben Shapiro did. Like his own audience is like, F you, and the horse you rode in on, or whatever you rode in on. Okay, so Mark Levin, F you. Now Charlie Kirk is beginning to get FUs because this is now, he did it twice. There's another tape of him saying, I'm not taking questions on that. And people are like, oh, now I see what's going on, right? So their own audience is in rebellion and they don't know how to handle it. That's why we started with that Benny Johnson clip of him being like, holy moly, I don't know what to do. So how do I know what they're gonna do if they don't know what they're gonna do? So I'm voting not sure, but they're in trouble, dog. Because, and by the way, of all the things that their audience has ever put pressure on them for, I mean, we kind of got lucky in a sense. This is the one thing their audience is right about, right? So of all the other things that they could put pressure on, and they do, etc., and they can go in the wrong direction, at least on this one, the voters align, right-wing and left-wing voters align, and I love that they're putting pressure on. And by the way, if you're a left-winger, you should also put pressure on left-wing shows, to be honest. Don't let them get away with like, oh, no, it's just Trump, Biden. Like I get this all the time. Why are you even mentioning Biden? I don't know, because he also covered it up for 4 years. So somebody wrote in on Super Chat, Gabe G, should Biden have released the Epstein files when he was in office? Of course. Look, nobody's ever said that Biden was on the list. People are talking about Clinton and Trump as possibilities, but it doesn't matter. Biden didn't release it, no Republican released it, no Democrat released it, and they're not releasing it now. So that's no excuse for Donald Trump. He's president right now. And good news, his side is saying, no, it's no excuse free. Or at least the great majority of his voters are, right? We should also be principled and say Biden, and because it's true, Biden had no excuse not to release those Epstein files, and he didn't release them either. This is the entire American government working against the American people. That's why this story's so big. And that's why we took so long and we're way past time. Okay.
Interesting stuff though. Whoever programmed this first hour, The Trump administration is furious. They said, stop talking about this guy.
Oh,
and
God.
it's like every story.
Golly gee, I might lose access to the Trump people.
Oh, look at that. No ads for you.
Man, I bet they get so much money. That Alex Jones thing, that's so frustrating, man. And then they turn around and go, oh, Soros is funding all you guys. Where? It's just projection because they all get, funding from something somehow. Anyways, all right, we got to run. Sharon is on Rebel headquarters, so make sure you check that out. When we come back, we have more amazing news. Are we going to agree with Tucker on something else? But guys, it's about a phenomenon. So come back, we'll talk about it. Jordan and I will discuss it. We'll be right back.
They failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And fill-in hosts beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut-up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, you won't believe the meeting that I just had.
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, Jerry, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago. When I realized that I was gonna have to put makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. You guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. This I did. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial. How to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw. All hands. Pick up a couple streaks. This is the guy we're putting on makeup. We got dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much for you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. They'll say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Jordan Yule, and Nicholas Connolly with you guys. Nicholas, thanks for hitting that join button below. We appreciate it. Jordan, what's next?
Take a look at this, Cenk.
At some point, the basic economics really matter, and they matter because not that it's bad that rich people are getting richer, it's bad that everyone else is getting poorer. And it's especially bad the young people can't afford homes. Let me just put a very precise point on this.
During his appearance at Turning Point's Student Action Summit over the weekend, Tucker Carlson made some comments about the housing market that may have caught some people in the room off guard. Let's take a look at what else he had to say.
GDP. No, I don't know what even that is. The total economic activity. Oh, no. My measure is really simple. I got a bunch of kids. Can they afford houses with full-time jobs at like 27, 28? And the answer is no way. And the answer is that 35-year-olds with really good jobs can't afford a house unless they stretch and go deep into debt. And I just think that's a total disaster. That's a complete disaster. Why? 2 reasons. One, if people don't own things, they don't feel ownership of the country they're in. And the country gets super volatile because people feel like they've got nothing to lose. When you have a lawn, trust me, you're thinking long term. Second, it's really hard to have a family without a house. It is. It's like super fun to live in an apartment if there's like a bar downstairs, you're in a cool neighborhood. I'm in East Village, it's so cool. Try to have 3 kids, you're not gonna have 3 kids. There you can't. Nobody wants to raise their kids in that neighborhood. Nobody wants to raise their kids in an apartment. People do it because they have to, nobody wants to. People want a little house, not some McMansion, just a little normal house. That is the actual American dream. And that is what is totally unattainable for young people.
And in some ways, he's spot on. We'll get into where we may disagree or take a different approach later, but let's look at some of the data. According to a recent study from Realtor.com, the median list price for homes for sale in the United States was $440,950 last month. These trends have continued over the past few weeks. Data from real estate brokerage Redfin shows. In the 4 weeks ending July 6th, pending sales in the nationwide market fell 3.5% from a year earlier, the second biggest decline since February. Instead of taking a hit, home prices went up, bafflingly so. In the same time frame, the median US home sale price hit an all-time high of $399,633, up 1% year over year. And this is from another realtor study. A home buyer now needs to earn at least $114,000 a year to afford a $431,250 home, the national median listing price in April, according to data released by Realtor. Based off the latest US median home listing price, homebuyers need to earn $47,000 more a year to afford a home than they would have just 6 years ago. Of course, wages have not increased by that much. But back to Carlson's comments on the housing market after he correctly diagnosed the problem. This is what he said.
So that is a national emergency. And I know that there are certain cable channels who are spending all this time talking about, they're about to elect a socialist in New York City, which obviously I'm opposed to it. He's not even a real socialist. He's like a trainee vax, rich kid liberal guy. Mamdani. He's a fake leftist, but whatever. Why do you think that's happening? One of the reasons it's happening is because normal people with normal jobs no longer believe they can win in this system and that all the money is going to the worst people. And no one even stops to ask what the hell is going on.
After taking a swipe at Mamdani, he resorted to the same Tucker Carlson we are so used to seeing, attacking big cities, attacking the homeless, and specifically zeroing in on diversity. Take a look.
I'm not radical. What I am is very worried that if we don't do something really soon, we're gonna wind up like New York City. That there's gonna be actual radicalism. And that radicalism will take very unhelpful forms. And you're gonna see race and ethnic hatred that's real. And that you're gonna see people behaving in hard to control ways. Why are my cities disgusting? I don't want to go there. It smells like weed and halal food.
Jank, this is the issue for me whenever Tucker Carlson says something that's semi-true or he identifies a problem, typically where he ends up with his diagnosis and a policy prescription or some sort of solution. That's usually where I break. But what do you make of his comments overall?
Yeah, so I think it's super telling, important, interesting that he is at least arriving at the correct problem, if not the correct solution. So I've got a lot of thoughts on that, but I want to start with one of our members who wrote in, Art Guy, and he said tyt.com, and you could join through tyt.com/join as well. And Art Guy said, I have zero faith that Tucker and all these guys suddenly saying the right things are doing so out of the goodness of their hearts. It's pure opportunism, especially for Tucker, who will use this to boost a run for the presidency. So what I want to have you guys understand from my perspective is, I don't really care what's in their hearts at all. And so do I agree with you that it is less likely to be, oh shucks, I really, out of the beauty and goodness that is flowing from my heart, want to help people. In my experience with both politicians and unfortunately media, that is less likely, much less likely, right? So what I care about is, have we all found the right problem to address? And then, even more difficult, the right solution. But you would be surprised at how hard it is to get to agreement on the right problem. So right now, I mean, the left has been saying this forever and ever about housing prices, drug prices, etc. And when we used to make this argument back in the day, we would get Republican talking points from Fox News, etc. And they'd be like, no, there is no housing problem. There are no drug price problems. All the money should go to the rich and tax cuts, and it'll trickle on you in 40 years from now. And there's still not only a huge portion of the Republicans doing that, they just passed a bill, the budget bill, that does exactly that, right? So goodness of my heart, my ass, right? So I don't believe that, I don't need that. That's not required for me to get to a point where we get some positive results. So if Tucker and the right wing, and this how all this started from my perspective, was when Charlie Kirk came on our show during the Republican National Convention, and I said, hey, housing prices are too much. We should prevent private equity from buying homes. It's driving up the prices. And he said, I totally agree. And I was like, I didn't expect that at all. I thought he was gonna go, how dare you, private equity is golden and the greatest guys on earth, and we have to give them more tax cuts and eventually that'll trickle on you. And he didn't say that. He's saying similar things to what Tucker just said there. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean that all those guys developed a conscience overnight. What it means is their own audience is telling them 24/7, we can't pay for houses anymore, and we're super mad about it. So now the left-wing audience and voters and the right-wing audience and voters agree. The houses cost too effing much, right? And it went up in our lifetimes. Don't tell me like Joe Biden did, like, oh yeah, young kids, you don't know anything. You don't know how tough we had it. We bought my house in Scranton for $37. I bet you guys are paying $35 now, right? So, I mean, that happens to be a Democrat, but every Republican says the same thing, right? So, Jordan, I find it to be excellent news that we are beginning to agree on what the problem is. Obviously, I think the solution is, among other things, banning private equity from buying residential real estate. I mean, over $400,000 for the average price of a house. That includes Kentucky and Mississippi and the hollers of West Virginia. I mean, it includes the whole country, $440,000. That's insane. That's insane. And so private equities, and they're like, oh, I don't know why it's still going up. Well, no, it should be going down. Yeah, because there's a giant buyer in the market, and so it's creating more, demand for the houses, and it's pushing up the prices because it's not just us competing against each other. Hey, I'll pay $110,000, I'll pay $111,000 for that house. This Wall Street goon is coming in and going, I'll pay $125,000. I'll take you. I mean, these are, again, prices from the old days. Now you can't buy a house like that. Like 2-bedroom apartments in Compton are going for at least $500,000. Straight out of Compton, like a millionaire. these days, right? So like, so I give a funny example there, but like, does it matter that there's a giant buyer in the market? Of course it matters. Of course it matters. And there's one thing that Tucker didn't mention that I think is even more important. Once they turn us all into renters, we will not be able to collect wealth in the most important asset that Americans have, their houses. Once you cannot create wealth like that, you're screwed for the rest of your life. You just become an indentured servant of the corporate class. So we have to end it. By the way, here's another guy who agrees and had it in his platform, Robert Kennedy Jr. So like you can just throw up your hands and go, I hate RFK Jr., I hate Tucker Carlson, so I won't work with them or anyone I won't even acknowledge that they're right about the problem, forget the solution, right? No, that's just crazy. No, thank God other people also realize it. And once we have a conversation about the solution, our solutions are better. What do you think, Jordan?
Well, I'm totally with you on the private equity front. I wrote a column in Newsweek a few years ago on this problem specifically. They were buying in all cash deals massive amounts of homes and driving the price up. And the problem has only gotten worse. There isn't a large enough contingent in Congress to meaningfully fight back and stop this. So the problem's just going to continue. And yes, of course, he is correctly diagnosing the problem. And this is my concern with many of these right-wing populists, because yeah, they start with a kernel of truth and where they go with it is dangerous. I mean, how do you go from people can't afford homes to there's going to be racial resentment in the cities and New York smells like halal food? I mean, we have to acknowledge that he is reaching a racist point. And this is the problem with hollow right-wing populists, I would argue. That, yeah, sure, he talks about some element of greed, but the problem is not with diversity. The problem is not with any sort of alleged racial animus. And to be clear, what he means is anti-white sentiment, that we've seen that throughout his right-wing populism for years. And they'll scapegoat the most marginalized. He talks a little bit about the credit card companies, but like name names. The Republicans, you're there at a Republican conference. It's that party's problem too. And yeah, he's talking about the problem. The problem and the culprit is not multicultural groups. The problem is not people of color. And I think this is where I always break with him. Yeah, okay, good job finding something in like your 50s that I identified in my 20s. Like, I don't know. I was telling you earlier, I had a friend last night who was talking about it with me and laughed at the idea that this guy keeps discovering new things about his own politics every couple of years. Sure, we want to applaud some sort of growth, but when he's doing it like our viewer pointed out and like I expressed to you this morning, clearly opportunistic with many of these right-wing populists. And when they routinely scapegoat marginalized communities, I really don't want anything to do with them, because if they're in a position to take credit for any sort of change at any point, and I'll be clear, my cynicism reigns. I don't have a whole lot of hope that we'll see a change. We need a change. But if there is any sort of adjustment, correction in this market, I don't want the same people who were blaming marginalized groups to be in a position to lead going forward on other problems.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you a question about that in a second, Jordan. But it's funny you mentioned that, because the very first comment on today's show, now almost an hour and a half ago, was by a member on TYT.com called Sassy Dragon, which is a fun handle. By the way, be part of the show, TYT.com/join. They wrote in, Tucker getting all the hype for saying what Cenk has been saying for 1 billion years, LOL. It's just weird, bro. So there's a phenomenon that explains why that happens. And that's why I'm excited that the Tuckers of the world are saying this, okay? Mainstream media that might be liberal on social issues, but they're very conservative on economic issues. And they're also obsessed with the right-wing media, and they loathe the left, okay? The populist left. So this is a phenomenon that happens all the time. So I'll say, hey, what about private equity buying all our homes? mainstream media will be like, who cares? Who cares? No, oh, you guys have 29 million subscribers, largest network on the left. Who cares? No way, no way. Charlie Kirk says, they're like, oh my God, what an interesting, genius idea. Did you guys know private equity was buying up the homes? It's so frustrating, right? Anna went on Her Take, the show that's on Valuetainment or whatever, right? So all the stuff she says on this show, she says on that show, and and a lot of people are writing in like, man, she makes a really compelling case for the left. Like maybe we should go left-wing populism. So she's doing a great job there. You know what happened? CNN calls and they're like, okay, hey, we saw you on Her Take. She's been on the largest progressive show for 18 straight years, right? So like you can't, if you're on the left, this sucks. This reality sucks. But you cannot get a message out unless you get it through the right wing. Because our mainstream media is the worst of the worst. They hate us so much and they have no idea they hate us. Right? They're like, oh, what do you mean? Oh, well, the right wing is legitimate, the left wing is illegitimate. I only listen to right wing shows. I don't know why you say that I don't listen to you guys. I loathe them. Anyway, so now, Jordan, we got Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson on their show talking about Mamdani. I don't know if you saw it on Tucker's show, but they were like, the establishment's attacking Mamdani, but he won because he ran on affordability, and that was the correct strategy. So it's interesting. Like if you say they're copying our strategy, they might be, right? In terms of figuring out what the correct problems are, right? And they're even acknowledging it in the case of Mamdani, which is a bit shocking, right? But if they say, here's the question, Jordan. If they say, okay, I got this. The correct answer to housing prices in America is that New York smells like halal food, so we should ban halal food. That's easy. You and I are gonna say, no, dumbass, that's not the problem. It's not even close to the problem, and we're gonna fight them on that, right? What if they say, oh no, you guys are right, it's private equity that's causing the problem. We'll join you in fighting against private equity buying residential homes. Do you still say, I'm wary, I don't trust them, no? Or do you go, oh, okay, sure, let's work together on that?
I mean, for me, it's looking at it from an advocacy standpoint. What does that look like? If it's just, Tucker Carlson talking about it on his podcast, once or twice in all, I don't really care. If it was actually standing up an advocacy campaign with a coalition of groups, which I don't think he would ever be part of, that'd be something I would have to deeply think about, because there are risks there, especially if you lend your credibility as a progressive organization or an advocacy organization to say, oh yeah, this is our ally in this fight. You're vouching for this person, and while he can identify one part of the problem, like we know how he feels about other aspects of society, and he is incorporating his animus toward those groups and those people into his rhetoric on this issue. So it'd be a strategic decision. I'd have to think about it deeply, and I probably would lean no.
Yeah, I really disagree. And so, because I mean, look, Joe Biden did some good things. I like that the infrastructure bill, where we're going to rebuild roads, bridges, and bring more Wi-Fi to rural areas, et cetera. I'm not co-signing with Joe Biden on Israel, his fealty to corporate donors, his deep immorality. Why do I have to co-sign to the person? I don't have to co-sign to the person. I just have to co-sign on that thing that he's agreeing with me on. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying stop funding to Israel. I co-sign right away. I don't care, like the other things I'll fight her on. Like you're not wrong, Jordan. Like in another part of that speech, Tucker Carlson had viciously anti-immigrant verbiage, right? And I hated that part of the speech, right? But when he was questioning MOSSAD, I like that part of the speech. When he's questioning that housing prices being too high, I like that part of the speech. And I don't need to say, okay, Jenks, good housekeeping stamp of approval on Tucker Carlson on his entirety, right? And by the way, here, I don't co-sign on anything because he hasn't proposed a solution. At least Charlie Kirk said, yes, ban private equity. That I agree with. And does that mean I co-sign it? Charlie Kirk's like saying the most viciously anti-Muslim things right now. Of course I don't co-sign on that, right? And I guess maybe what we can agree on, Jordan, is that at the end of the day, we have to deliver Democratic votes and they have to deliver Republican votes. Otherwise, all this coalition building isn't going to amount to a hill of beans.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, whenever he talks about these types of things, it's okay, well, what are you doing beyond that? And of course, you have for years gone to work after identifying a problem, talking about a problem, reporting on it, covering it, then you've gone to work. Tucker Carlson just talks. So sure, he can acknowledge it, good job. We already knew that. Do something else. Put your money where your mouth is. Like, let's see you actually try to fight for this change. If you care so deeply about the future of young Americans and their ability to afford homes, let's see something. I know you would fight for it, and I know our viewers would fight for it, but I want to see any of these right-wing populists actually fight for something beyond just talking about it.
Yeah, super last thing. I mean, to your point, the Young Turks audience, along with us, has already come up with a populist plank. And this issue is already in the populist plank. And so populistplank.com. But also, then we asked the Rebellion PAC candidates to sign on to the populist plank, which it includes banning private equity from buying residential homes. And all 4 of the candidates so far have signed on, saying, yeah, we don't just agree with that. We're gonna fight like hell to make sure that that happens when we're in Congress. So we're doing something about it. I'd love to see the right wing, if they're earnest, do something about it. Okay, propose, I hope you agree with us. And it's a perfectly reasonable thing, or if you have a different idea, then have that idea and try to push it forward. But at the end of the day, guys, as we try to be as productive as humanly possible, go join rebellionpac.com, be part of the rebellion, right? Fight back, pick people who are gonna actually fight for you. But if we can't get enough votes, all of this is going to be academic. I like that Tucker's telling his audience, and I like that Charlie's telling his audience, because now they think, yeah, there's a housing problem. They already thought that to begin with. But when Charlie says, yeah, it is private equity that's causing the problem, they now begin to realize that it's private equity, even if he's wrong on everything else. But we've got to take that energy and actually turn it into votes. Otherwise, none of us win. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, Israeli settlers unfortunately have murdered yet another American. And you're going to be shocked to find out what the American government reaction is. No, you're not. We'll be back. All right, so I'm gonna go to TYT.com again. I'll read some of these blind. Wang Jun said, hey, even Batman has to team up with Joker sometimes. Don Dada Dragon says, Tucker will diagnose that I cannot afford a house, but he will kneecap me in front of a live audience for being black while also fully qualified commercial pilot. And if I ask for any assistance for my education, I'm a welfare leech. To be fair to Tucker, because we're the fairest show in America, it was Charlie Kirk who was a jerk about the black pilots. So he was the one who was the racist about the black pilots, not Tucker. They say terrible things about different things at different times. Anyways, your point overall is perfectly valid. And yeah, again, guys, take the agreements, fight on the disagreements. Gary Donahue says, I really enjoy the conversations between Jake and Jordan. I always learn something new. Thanks for saying that, Gary, really appreciate it. And that's kind of the whole point of Young Turks is open minds, open hearts. We have these conversations, we don't all have to agree, and we all learn from those conversations, and we learn from different perspectives. On the left, we believe, or we should believe, in different perspectives and hearing things out. And by the way, have the courage of your convictions. If you have the courage of your convictions, you shouldn't be afraid of any debate or conversation. Post-traumatic South disorder says Jordan is only 100%, right? So there you go.
A little low, but yeah, all right.
Okay, I'd go 90 or so, but okay, I hear you. Okay, BC Lizzie says, I appreciate these guys talking about a major problem in my life. We all feel like failures even though we're not. The rich have ruined our country, talking about Tucker on housing. That whole thing about merit, basically, I wrote about it in my book, Justice is Coming. They partly talk about, everything's based on merit. So when Paris Hilton, inherits hundreds of millions of dollars, they're like, what? It's a meritocracy. She deserves it. She earned it. No, she didn't. She didn't do anything to deserve it or earn it. But then when you are not born rich, they go, well, you didn't merit it. It's disgusting. So I love the idea of an actual meritocracy, but not the fake one we have now enforced with that discriminatory ideology based on class. Boomer Dragon Cat says, just like Obama didn't have time to codify Roe, she's referring to Biden not releasing the Epstein files. Camp Corona Dad says, the guy from Turning Point says he's getting sick and tired of the lies. Now? You mean 30,000 lies into Trump's first term wasn't too many for you? That's actually Jack Posobiec who said that. And that guy is the Pizzagate guy, okay? So yeah, no, Posobiec has told 1,000 lies. The only reason he's forced to say now that he's tired of the lies, including Trump's lies, is because his entire audience is saying it. And he's afraid to cross his audience. Not because he all of a sudden decided he's a big advocate of truth. That's not Posobiec at all. I'm out of time, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Jordan, and Stanley Smith. Thank you for gifting a Young Turks membership on YouTube. We appreciate it. Jordan, what's next?
Donald Trump threatened to revoke comedian and longtime Trump critic Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship over the weekend. In a Truth Social post on Saturday, he wrote, because of the fact that Rosie O'Donnell is not in the best interests of our great country, I'm giving serious consideration to taking away her citizenship. She is a threat to humanity and should remain in the wonderful country of Ireland if they want her. God bless America. Now, let's get into some of the details here, because O'Donnell was born in the United States and has a constitutional right to US citizenship. It cannot be revoked by the president. The US State Department notes on its website that US citizens by birth or naturalization may relinquish US nationality by taking certain steps, but only if that act is performed voluntarily and with the intention of relinquishing US citizenship. Amanda Frost, a law professor at the University of Virginia School of Law, noted the Supreme Court ruled in a 1967 case that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution prevents the government from taking away citizenship. The president has no authority to take away the citizenship of a native-born US citizen. In short, we are a nation founded on the principle that the people choose the government cannot choose the people. But Rosie did fire back with an Instagram post writing, the president of the USA has always hated the fact that I see him for who he is, a criminal con man, sexual abusing liar out to harm our nation to serve himself. This is why I moved to Ireland. He is a dangerous, old, soulless man with dementia who lacks empathy, compassion, and basic humanity. I stand in direct opposition to all he represents. So do millions of others. You gonna deport all who stand against your evil tendencies? You're a bad joke who can't form a coherent sentence. I mean, Cenk, what do you make of this? It feels like there are some aspects to Trump's behavior and the way his administration is operated where they just defy the law. Do you think there's a possibility that they try this anyway?
Yeah, so it's two quick things about this. So first, like this whole idea of taking away birthright citizenship is maniacal in the first place. So deeply unconstitutional, makes no sense, etc. But put that aside for a second, and let's talk about this. So even if you thought taking away birthright citizenship was a good idea, because the damn immigrants are coming in here and having anchor babies and I don't want it, etc. What we've been saying all along is, yeah, but if you take away birthright citizenship, how do you know who's a citizen anymore, right? Because you can say, that person came in from Panama, or both of his parents did, so we take it away. But one parent was from America, but a resident here legally, but the other parent came from Panama. Wait, both parents are from America, but now just being born in America doesn't give you birthright citizenship, so you have to prove it. Oh, she couldn't prove that her mom was from America, even though she had a birth certificate or whatever. Okay, wait, that doesn't make any sense. We told you guys, because once you take it away, then the only people who actually are kind of guaranteed citizenship is naturalized citizens like me. It's fun that I would have an advantage over you guys, but I don't want it because that's absurd and not how our Constitution works. But okay, so how it started, we're gonna take away birthright citizenship so that immigrants can't come in here and have kids that become American citizens. How it's going 6 months later is Trump saying, I'm gonna take away the citizenship of anyone who criticizes me. Even if you're MAGA, is that what you signed up for? And let's say you love Daddy Trump and you think Daddy Trump should get to take away the citizenship of any US citizen that was born here or not born here, it doesn't matter. Daddy Trump is now king and he should be able to do whatever he wants. And if I criticize him on Epstein, he should take away my citizenship, right? Okay, even if you agree with that, what happens when a Democrat comes into office? And you guys have, if you're on the right, you have these theories about, they're gonna bring in all the immigrants and let them vote. What if you can't vote anymore because they took away your citizenship? Oh, right, wildly threatening to take away people's citizenship that is deeply unconstitutional, and obviously no president should do it. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's brazen. It's purely based on the fact that she criticized him, which, again, this is something the right pretended to care about for years when it came to right-wing provocateurs being able to say whatever they wanted. But now that someone dares criticize him and exercise their free speech, even if they're not currently living here, now their citizenship could potentially be on the line. I want to hope that courts will see this and they can't do this. But time and time again, because the right has packed the courts for years, they've just changed their minds. No, you know what? We don't need to follow the law. No, let's rewrite the law. And we're in a dangerous new era where, like you're talking about, Jag, birthright citizenship, something that is explicitly in the 14th Amendment. Now suddenly, maybe it's up for debate. There isn't a gray area here. And that the fact that he's willing to talk about it and post about it shows that there have been some internal discussions. So I'm very concerned with where this goes. And I think they picked someone like her because they know she probably wouldn't receive any sort of, especially from the right. There are some things, like we're saying with Epstein, that are so unpopular, there's backlash. Someone like her, she's already conditioned by the right to hate. So I don't know where this goes, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, last things here. Look, in the past, if you criticize Trump for this, what all of MAGA would have said, he's just trolling, man. You guys can't believe you guys are buying into this, man. He gets you guys every time. Now that he's criticized his own base for asking about Epstein too much, when he does stuff like this, I'm curious to see what's gonna happen next. Are they gonna be like, he's just trolling? Or are they gonna be like, yeah, I'm starting to get real annoyed. Like, what do you mean? Like, I can't criticize politicians now? Now, if I criticize a politician, you're gonna take my citizenship away? I don't know, we'll see. That one, the jury's out on. I haven't seen any reaction to it yet. But I mean, obviously, if you think a politician should be able to take away your citizenship for criticizing him, you don't really believe in America. You don't really believe in freedom of speech, and you don't believe in the US Constitution. Those things are obvious. So then the rest is up to people to prove what they believe and don't believe. Do they believe in just Daddy Trump, or do they believe in this country and this Constitution? That's what we're gonna find out. Okay, and we already know we have a break coming up. That we found out a while back. Okay, let's do that break right now. All right, guys, back on TYT. On Super Chat, Gargoyle Dragon asked a really good question or made a comment that I really want to comment on. He said, the one problem with aligning with the right is if they betray us, use the populist credentials from our side and don't enact the policies like Trump, what do we do then? We can't keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. No, I'm so glad you brought that up because I want to clarify. No, nobody gets benefit of the doubt. There's no I trust fill in the blank, right? Trump, no way. Tucker, no. Charlie Kirk, no. There's no trust, okay? There's either you're in favor of a policy and you animate your audience to be in favor of that, in an ideal situation, animate the politicians to be in favor of that, or not, period. Nobody's saying like, oh yeah, we should just trust Tucker Carlson and vote for him. No, don't do that, okay? So what are we trying to do? We're trying to align with the voters, So if 84% of Americans believe in paid family leave, and right-wing influencer says, oh yeah, that makes sense, give moms 12 weeks off, we take the yes for an answer, right? And we work over all of our audiences together. Ask for paid family leave, right? Be against the wars, as long as we have agreement. And then we all, one day, I mean, this is the dream of all dreams, collect enough pressure from the outside to force our politicians on the inside to actually do these things, right? But what you're doing is you're doing an alliance and coalition with the voters. You're not blindly trusting any Republican politician. And to be fair to them, they're not blindly trusting any Democratic politician. If there's someone who's an actual populist on the left, and they're saying, hey, I'm gonna do these anti-war, anti-corruption, all these things that you agree with, then they earned your vote, right? And so that's what I would say to the independents. That's what I would say to even some on the right. Look, if the populist plank makes sense to you, our guys are definitely gonna do it, right? The Republicans have never proven that, corporate Democrats have never proven that, but the populist left actually fights for those things, and you see them doing it in Congress as we speak, as Ro Khanna does every day. And many others too these days. Yvonne says, what disgusted me most of us in the UK, what disgusted most of us in the UK is that Prince Andrew's mother paid out £12 million to prevent a trial. I mean, you can't say, oh, we paid £12 million to get rid of the allegations against us and say, oh no, there were no allegations, there was no crime, we just paid it for no reason. No, it's absurd. David Ritter writes on YouTube member section, what did Alex Jones say about Sandy Hook? Why do people still listen to him? David, I think that that's true of a lot of hosts in a lot of parts of the political spectrum, and I wish people would use your standard. Like Alex Jones also said that Obama would set up FEMA camps. Where the F is the FEMA camps? The minute there's no FEMA camps, you should all be done with them, right? By the way, a lot of hosts on the left said that Joe Biden was young and dynamic, mainly on TV, okay? Some online, but mainly on TV. You should never listen to them again. They're obvious liars. They said they talked to him behind the scenes and he was incredibly young and dynamic. Bunch of liars, never listen to them again. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. So guys, we have super powerful stories for you, but we're gonna have to do the members only episode because we're a little short on time here to be able to squeeze the story in before the show ends. But don't miss the story about the American who was killed or murdered in the West Bank and what the government reaction to it is. That's among the powerful stories. And Dave Smith at Turning Point USA also begins to ask a question we've all been dying for someone on the right to ask. A question we've asked for years here on the Young Turks. So you're gonna love that. That's also in the bonus episode for members. So hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. So now let me go to our members on YouTube with a couple of minutes that we have left. Ford Country says about Trump's Truth Social post, radical left inspired documents. This is a preemptive answer because Cheeto knows his name is all over that crap. Well, that's the logical conclusion to draw. I mean, he was so defensive about it, pretending they're fake, pretending the radical left came up with the Epstein files. Every time I say it, it sounds so absurd, you can't believe it. Anyway, but the only reason that logically why you would say that is if you think the files are about to come out and your name's on it. Right? But that also made me think, wait, are the files gonna come out? Why is he so, like if he thought he could keep the files buried forever and his name's on it, he wouldn't really care that much. But he seems like he's in a bit of a panic. So good point. Gabe G, thank you for signing up to become a member on YouTube. We appreciate you, brother. Mikey3343, another member said, I read The Guy Who Never Dies as even when I have him killed, I can't kill the story. I don't know that that's true, but that's an interesting interpretation of a very curious comment that Trump made in that True Social post. I've got a couple more comments for you guys from the members and those important stories when we return in the members only bonus episode. We'll see you there.